This footage was smuggled out of Nigeria at great personal risk. At a secret location and in fear of their lives, these Ogoni activists are listening to the last message made by their executed leader, Saro Wiwa. The Nigerian military dictatorship saw Saro Wiwa's ideas as a threat and set up a show trial to silence his campaign. This film includes footage of the trial which was shot by the Nigerian military. It has never been shown before. Despite worldwide appeals for clemency, on November the 10th, 1995, Saro Wiwa and 8 other Ogonis were taken to Port Harcourt prison and hanged by the neck.
They thought that they just had to eliminate him. They felt he was the person who actually must have been the power behind the whole revolution.
Saro Wiwa became famous in Nigeria as writer and director of the sitcom Bazzi and Company, which ran for 150 episodes. Its popularity stemmed from an accurate portrayal of corruption in Nigerian society. Kenule Bison Saro Wiwa was the son of a trader who at 92 still runs the family business. After a short period in local government, he left to concentrate on writing and publishing. Most of his books were set in his oil-rich homeland of Ogoni.
Despair. He cursed the earth for spouting oil, black gold they called it, and he cursed the gods for not drying the oil wells. What did it matter that millions of barrels of oil were mined and exported daily, so long as this poor woman wept those tears of despair? What could he look into later? Could he make alternate land available? And would the lawmakers revise the laws just to bring a bit more happiness to these unhappy wretches whom the search for oil had reduced to an animal existence? They ought to send the oil royalties to the men whose farms and land were despoiled and ruined, but the lawyers were in the pay of the oil companies, and the government people in the pay of the lawyers and the companies. So how could he look into it later? He should have told the woman to despair, to die, not to live in death. That would have been more honest and respectable.
Since independence from Britain, a succession of Nigerian dictators have been sustained by oil, half of which is produced by Shell. This oil accounts for 14% of Shell's global profits and provides the military regime with $11 million a day. Shell started to extract oil from Ogoni in 1958. Suppressed and impoverished by despots and severely affected by oil pollution, Ogoni is a small, densely populated area on the Niger Delta. The Ogoni people had felt powerless to defend their farmland until 1990.
In Ogoni, we had the leadership in the person of Ken, who motivated the people. We had the organization like MOSOP that was the first of its kind in that part of the world. grassroots democracy, in trying to mobilize all segments of the people.
The movement for the survival of Ogoni people, known as Mossop, was formed to campaign for ethnic minority rights and an end to 35 years of oil pollution. By 1993, Saro Wiwa had become president.
We are going to demand our rights peacefully, non-violently, and we shall win.
In that year, 300,000 people took part in peaceful marches on their cultural festival known as Ogoni Day.
Ogoni Day in 1993 was the most exhilarating experience for me. It was wonderful to see a people who had been docile for so long. Fear no longer a part of them. And on that day, when I saw the large number of people streaming into Bori from their various villages, I really felt a sense of fulfillment. If I had died the day after that, I would have died a very happy man indeed.
From today onwards, Shell is declared persona non grata in Ogoni. No to Shell! No to Shell!
For the first time, peaceful protest forced Shell out of the area. A tiny ethnic group had defied the largest army in Africa and one of the biggest companies in the world. Both Shell and the Nigerian dictatorship had been surprised by the effectiveness of Mossop, whose revolutionary ideas could spread and threaten oil operations elsewhere on the Delta. Shell do admit that there have been environmental problems, but state that Mossop's claims of devastation are exaggerated, and they say they are updating their operations in line with current industry standards. But the following minutes of a Shell meeting, held in February 1993, reveal their acute embarrassment at Saro Wiwa's campaigning. Having also become a thorn in the government side, Saro Wiwa started to experience harassment and detentions. In July 1993, the government began the violent suppression of the Mossop campaign. Major Paul Okuntimo was head of military operations in the area.
The MG with 500 rounds will open up. When 4 or 5 like that open up, and then we are throwing grenades into the food, and it's making boom. What do you think and the lamb around, what do you think the people are doing? And we have already put roadblock on the main road. We don't want anybody to start running, so the option we made was that we should drive all these boys, all these people into the bush.
Ogoni was surrounded, villages were blocked in by military checkpoints and attacked, over 800 people were slaughtered. This footage was filmed by Ogoni people a few hours after the raiders had left.
The pain, the excruciating pain between what I know is possible and what I see before me.
Ken Saro Wiwa and 14 colleagues were held without charge for 9 months in a military camp under appalling conditions. Despite this, Saro Wiwa continued to organize Mossop through secret letters. Our people must be prepared to see me shut away for some time. I'm psychologically prepared for that, and it is not unusual in a struggle of this nature.
I acted as a courier for Ken's letters in and out of detention. Getting to see him was very difficult. At times it meant having to pay bribes, and very heavy bribes, to get in. At times you had to sneak in and hope that they don't get you. His was a particularly difficult situation because he had a heart problem and some other blood problems, so to get drugs to him was difficult because they didn't allow it.
He was in leg irons for some time and handcuffed, even when he was going to toilet. The guards believed that Ken had the mystical powers, that he could just vanish from the detention and all that. And so to allow him out from that cage will enable him the opportunity to use those magical powers which they claim he had. So that made him the focal point of most of what the bad treatment they were giving to us.
Their show trial did not begin until February 1995 in Port Harcourt.
Charge number OCDT/PH/1/95 between the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Kenule Basin, Saro, Wiwa, led to meet Dr. Barine Nubari Kilber, John Benun, and Baribo Bell.
I thought that the tribunal was fundamentally unfair. The agenda was to condemn Mossop as being a violent organization and to make an example of a number of its leaders. What the Nigerian government did, quite cynically in my view, was to take this trial away from the ordinary Nigerian courts and to put it in front of a so-called civil disturbances tribunal, consisting of 2 judges and a military officer. Those 3 people were personally appointed by the dictator of Nigeria, Abacha.
12 defendants were charged with physically taking part in the 4 murders. Saro, Wiwa and Ledum Mite were charged with having encouraged the killings, as was Dr. Kiobel, who complained about their families being intimidated.
Even my family at home and the secretary to the chief of my village is still being chastised by the armed forces. If justice is to be done, I plead the tribunal to look into that. Let it be played for the whole world to see, so that whatever decision you take, your justice will be clear to everybody.
Major Okuntimo did not hesitate from intervening during the tribunal. He had members of the defense team beaten, and Saro Wiwa's 70-year-old mother horsewhipped when she tried to attend the trial.
I was being told by the defense that they could only see their clients in presence of Paul Okuntimo, who was effectively a prosecution spy. And on the other hand, when I had private conference with the prosecuting counsel, in walked Paul Okuntimo, introduced himself as being the chief of Ogoniland, and sat down and started to participate in the conference.
As a lawyer, Ledum Mite attempted to defend himself, but was continually blocked by the tribunal.
Those are opportunities for explanation. So I feel that is that at this stage, you cannot do so.
The prosecution case hinged on statements made by 2 witnesses who said that Saro Wiwa had told supporters to deal with the 4 Ogoni victims.
2 witnesses who felt their conscience had pricked them sufficiently actually turned up and recanted their statements. The witnesses confessed to how much money they got and how Shell was also to be involved in providing such money.
Shell have always denied that any approaches were made, whatever the witnesses claimed they were told. Now in great danger, the witnesses' testimony was captured on video by the defense team as evidence to show the tribunal.
At this time, I was promised that after the case in court, I'll be given a house anywhere in country. A contract from Shell and unpaid, and some amounts of money to buy my musical instruments.
They also alleged that virtually every other witness in the case of Substance had been bribed or had been involved in offering bribes. Both the prosecution and the tribunal completely ignored that suggestion of bribery. There was never any attempt made, as far as I could see, to investigate it, and so for all one knows, none of the evidence that was given before the tribunal might be reliable.
The state has decided to ensure that the accused persons are convicted at all costs. The entire trial is, with respect, a premeditated plan to disrupt the proceedings of the tribunal. My Lord, I object, and I want my learned friend to be asked to withdraw that line of submission. And I want my learned friend to appreciate it. Like the scans are over today, it can be anybody's turn tomorrow. It was Abiola yesterday, it's Obasanjo and Yar'Adua today. It can be anybody's turn. With the greatest respect, sir, I humbly apply to withdraw from further representation.
In protest at the unfairness of the trial, the defence team pulled out.
Of the fourth accused person in this.
The outspoken Femi Falana is now also a political prisoner.
The tribunal is no surprise at the action of this bunch of defense counsels. They have right from the beginning of this case have no intention of carrying on this case to its logical conclusion. Do you have anything to say pertaining to this issue of getting the counsel of law joined? Yes, Mr. Saro, you must be there, yes or no for me? Yes or no? Yes. Yes or no? We are not going here. Administrator, Saro. The question we are asking you is that we are giving you whether what time you need to get the counsel of your own choice.
Ken's stance in relation to the tribunal was it was all a farce, it was all a fix, so he wasn't going to give evidence. Ken wanted to put in before the tribunal a long 40-page statement of denial of his guilt. The tribunal said, we're not going to look at that if you're not giving evidence. When they came to give their judgment, they pretended, and there's no other word for it, that Ken Saro-Wiwa hadn't challenged any of the prosecution evidence, so they could take it all as being true without even having to think about whether it was or not. And that just seemed to me to be totally dishonest and to show their bias against him.
A lot of things were becoming pretty clear towards the end, and also in the letters he received, there were a lot of people were very worried about how things were going, but in his usual nature he'd laugh and tell them not to worry, and that, look, even if it went on, that they should know that they have to carry on. And he gave a lot of courage. It was amazing to see, and he knew that he could go either way, but yet his spirit was high, very high.
I remember about a few days before the judgment, he came to me about 4 a.m. and said that he had one dream, and that we were in the judgment hall. They had finished the judgment, and he was still sitting down there alone. People had gone. Then he was asking people to show him the way to his village. It was like he was treading a lonely path to that place, and he couldn't understand the language. He thought that, well, these people are out to do their worst. And so he had this sort of a feeling. We now resolve, we must damn them. Even if they want to kill us, we should just damn the whole thing about whatever. None of us must show any sign of weakness. Let them go to hell.
We're in real trouble. I've started to prepare Mama and Papa for the worst, so they do not get dismayed when I'm convicted. However, that will not be the end of the story, as you well know. Before sentence was passed, in his last public statement, Ken Saro Wiwa made a final appeal for the people of the Niger Delta.
There is no possibility whatsoever that I or Mossad could ever have planned any such action. And I will forever disavow it, no matter what any forum decides upon. I appeal to you, my Lord, for only one thing. The Ogoni people have suffered tremendously in this country. They have made tremendous contribution to this country. The Niger Delta itself is in serious trouble. We need every assistance that we can get.
On the 31st of October, Ken Saro Wiwa and 8 others were found guilty and sentenced to death by hanging. 6 of the total 15 defendants were acquitted, including Ledum Mite.
After the judgment was read, when they pronounced, they said they discharged me. At first I had, well, oh God, thank God. But next, when I heard what they were saying, they condemned this thing, I broke down and cried. He was the person holding me in that court. Ken was saying, why, don't do that. Remember, we said we wouldn't show weakness to these people, let them not get a pride and all that. But I couldn't help it. I couldn't imagine. It was, my life was already intertwined with this group. We've stayed in circumstances that we were like brothers.
With the announcement of the death sentences, the story became international for the first time.
It's the only hope that my father has now. The Commonwealth doesn't say anything, he will be executed. We went to the Commonwealth Conference because we felt that the Commonwealth had the authority and the standing to actually make a strong statement to prevent disaster happening.
In a race against time, Ken Wiwa sought out President Nelson Mandela, who was seen as the most influential African figure at the conference.
We did try to meet President Mandela because we felt he was one politician with the authority and the standing to say something, to intervene on my father's behalf and on behalf of all the other Ogonis. We tried to meet him and we didn't.
I would rather leave this task to people who are more experienced than myself and who have been busy with Nigeria all along.
Mounting criticism greeted the Nigerian contingent on arrival in Auckland. Meanwhile, Commonwealth leaders took no action against Nigeria, who announced on the 8th of November that the death sentences were confirmed.
I didn't have time to even consider on a personal level the implications of what was happening. I just had to digest the information and just respond to it in a way which would have the most impact, which would try to save his life. So, I almost sort of blanked out the implications of hearing that the sentences had been confirmed.
For if the Commonwealth is to live up to those ideals, it must be effective. And to be effective, it must have moral authority.
But no one had reacted quickly enough. On November the 10th, the Ogoni 9 were taken to Port Harcourt prison to be hanged by the neck. Ken Saro Wiwa's last words were, "I never destroyed my people, but my people are killed. If it be that I can die to free my people, please my God, and the gods and soil of Ogoni land, allow me to die." In less than 2 hours, all the Ogoni 9 were dead. The bodies were dumped in this graveyard, where acid was poured over them to remove any trace of their existence. No one has been allowed to visit the graves.
I was devastated. True. Totally. I just asked, where was God? How can you let an innocent man be killed in that sort of horrible manner?
A fraudulent trial, a bad verdict, an unjust sentence, and it has now been followed by judicial murder. I don't think that is acceptable. I see no way in which it can be defended. And if the Harare principles mean anything, I do not myself see how Nigeria can stay in the Commonwealth until they return to democratic government.
Governments around the world discussed sanctions against Nigeria, but 5 days after the hangings, Shell announced their commitment to the liquefied natural gas project, the largest development in Africa.
With me is one of the directors of Shell Nigeria, Emeke Achope. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Shell were under pressure to pull out.
It would be a tragedy for Shell or for anybody else to use one single event to make a decision of that nature. It would be a tragedy for Nigeria.
The project has gone ahead, and it is intended that the gas pipeline will pass through Ogoni. But recent revelations have increased the controversy surrounding Shell's presence on the Niger Delta. Last year, Shell suffered unwelcome publicity over the leaking of a military memo written by Major Paul Okontimo in 1994. Shell denied any connection and expressed their disapproval of any such military operations. They also sought to distance themselves from Okontimo, but have recently conceded that they did pay field allowances to the military, including Okontimo, during the 1993 inspection of Shell facilities in Ogoni. A few weeks after the beginning of the trial of Saro Wiwa, a private meeting was held at Shell Centre in London between 4 senior officials of Shell, a Nigerian Army colonel and the Nigerian High Commissioner, in which it was discussed how they could jointly counter the publicity surrounding the Ogoni campaign. The High Commissioner was delighted to hear that Shell were about to make their own film and promised to assist them in producing it. He advised them to act fast. The film set out to comprehensively rebut Mossop's criticisms, including Shell's lack of commitment to local communities.
Some $20 million is spent annually on community projects. Help is given to improve infrastructure. Agriculture is given support with training schemes for farmers and workers on the land. Education is given assistance, and Shell helps to provide health services with hospitals and clinics.
Despite Shell's efforts, during the summer, protests intensified. It was at this time that the head of Shell Nigeria, Brian Anderson, held private meetings with Owens Wiwa in Lagos.
And I asked him again about my brother and the other detainees for their freedom. And he said that it would be difficult to get their release, but not impossible.
The meetings are not denied, but Shell dispute Dr. Wiwa's account of what took place.
He said that he needs some goodwill from the Ogoni people, from Mossop, for that to happen. So I asked him what was the goodwill. He said that I should write a press release on a Mossop letterhead, get it published in a Nigerian newspaper, and give him the original, And the press release should say that there was no environmental devastation in Ogoniland. Secondly, he asked that we should call off the international campaign that was going on. The campaign was hurting the Nigerian military dictatorship and Shell.
Dr. Wiwa says he passed on this offer to Ken Saro Wiwa, who wrote back that it was time for Shell to show goodwill rather than the Ogoni. Shell say they made no such offer, that the meetings were nothing more than an attempt at quiet diplomacy and not an intrusion into politics. No further meetings took place. However, Brian Anderson made this statement after the executions.
Following the sentencing to death for murder of Mr. Ken Saro Wiwa and 8 others at the Ogoni Civil Disturbances Tribunal, Shell appealed for clemency to the head of state on humanitarian grounds.
My father wasn't executed for murder. I think Brian Anderson needs to go back and look very carefully at the case before he makes wild statements like that.
Our view was that a commutation of the death sentence would have helped towards the process of ultimate reconciliation in the Ogoni lands.
Everybody condemned the judicial process that led to my father's murder. Shell remain one of the few groups who haven't condemned the process. And they had their lawyers there. Surely they know what was going on.
I urge all of you here to keep the pressure on Shell to accept the responsibility for what has happened in Ogoni and what is still happening.
Solidarity forever! Solidarity forever! Solidarity forever! We must always fight for our rights!
This is a procession by the Ogoni youth demonstrating their support for late Saro Wiwa.
We have agreed, and the entire Ogoni people has resolved, that the Ogoni struggle will ever continue. We have resolved that Ogoni must gain her autonomy.
Oh, yes.
We have resolved that Shell will no longer come back to Ogoni land.
Soldiers lined the main roads and fired upon unarmed demonstrators. 4 people were killed and 18 wounded.
Abe'u, don't you worry. Abe'u, don't you worry. Since you happen to die in Mossab struggle, never worry, we shall meet again.
This is the body of Lucky Barabe, who after being shot in the head was dumped into a river. Another young boy, Ledorno Koto, was shot in Bori. As a reaction to world condemnation of the Ogoni 9 executions, the UN sent a fact-finding mission to Nigeria in April 1996. They met with the man who had announced Saro Wiwa's guilt just hours after the 4 murders, Colonel Como. The Nigerian regime orchestrated the visit and ensured that they had a military escort.
We just want to demonstrate to the whole world that we are not repressing the Ogonis. We want them as much as possible to talk to the United Nations. So we are not inhibiting them. So this is an exception, okay?
No te ga dokwa. Ni chwa ga kan do.
Protesters who were brave enough to emerge from the bush confronted the UN team when they visited Ken Saro-Wiwa's home village. This was not part of the prepared schedule. The Ogoni are still waiting for any UN action against the Nigerian dictatorship. Known as the Ogoni 19, a further group of young men have also been charged with the 1994 murders. This message was smuggled out of prison.
I am reporting from Potato Place, where we kept since 21st May 1994. To date, we are still here. We don't know the offense we committed. We don't know our fate. Every day we continue having torture, beating here and there. We are now calling all the international community to go and assure us.
It's very hard to describe these places with the barest minimum. You see a little room and there are up to 50 or 100 people in a room that maybe was made for only 2 or 3 people actually. They're not giving food. Your family has to bring food for you. There's rampant disease. You're not taken to hospital. There are extrajudicial killings there. If policemen feel maybe the room is too tight, they can take out 2 or 3 who have been there for some time and shot. Just taken out and shot and thrown into a pit somewhere. These are people who have never even been tried in a court of law. And that's why we're fighting hard to see what can be done for these 19 men to be released and the over 40 others that are in detention, because we know that what they're going through there is hell.
Since the executions, a military crackdown on Mossop has meant that many key activists have fled Nigeria. 1,000 are at a refugee camp in neighbouring Benin, which Ledum Mite, now acting president of Mossop, recently visited. The Nigerian military have orders to shoot him on sight, and he has narrowly avoided capture on many occasions. The children had written a play for his visit.
I am letter A, Abacha and Alta, master haters and killers of Ogoni people. I am letter B, blood, a lot have been spilled. I am letter C, court, fair court trials are denied us. Only kangaroo court tried us.
The thing that always gladdens one's heart is the spirit, the irrepressible spirit of the Ogoni people, to continue to believe in this struggle in spite of all odds. And that is the thing that drives all of us on, and that is what fires me personally. People know exactly what we are talking about. They know about their environment. They know about what Shell has done. They know that they have gone through their land and they have gotten nothing. They know that there are pollutions that have made their life miserable. So it is the environment, actually, that mobilizes the Ogoni people, not the other way around.
And let our head home, we are homeless. I am letter I. I stand for internet. Ken taught us to use our brain and fight with the pen.
The struggle itself is about hope. If I didn't think that there was hope in the future, I would not be fighting. I would not be encouraging anybody to struggle the way we are doing now. Yes, there must be hope. It's a rich land. It's well blessed. If we can get the oppressors out of the way, if we can get those practicing double standards out of the way, if we can get the pollution to stop, I am sure that Ogoni will be a happy land.
Sitam, Biaogoni, Sitam, Ile, Ira, Goyo, Weazia, Nopa, Biaogoni, no.